Hey guys, Willie Mayette, creator of JAZZEDGE. Welcome to episode 28 of the Confident Improviser. Today, we're talking about the 8 scales that you need to know for improvisation. If you learn these 8 scales, you are going to be well situated to be able to create some killer solos. Remember, this podcast is a companion podcast for the Confident Improviser program, which is part of my JAZZEDGE core courses. You can find more information back at jazzedge.com. All right, so the sheet music is all available for my JAZZEDGE students. So if you're a JAZZEDGE student, go ahead and log in. It's underneath the lesson named 8 Scales You Must Know for Improvisation. So if you just search for 8 scales, the number 8, it will come up and you'll be able to find it. All right, so the one scale that I did not put on here because it should be a pretty obvious scale, but let's just make sure we're on the same page here. You have to know your major scale, right? If you don't know your major scale, then you have to make sure you really work that major scale. You have to know all 12 of your major scales. If you want to be able to improvise at the piano, you really have to be able to go through and play all 12 major scales, hands together. What you want to do is go through my Piano Essentials program. I lay it all out for you. It's all right there. So if you don't know your major scales yet, just go and take a look at Piano Essentials, and you can find everything that you need for those scales. All right, so the first scale here is the major pentatonic. This major pentatonic is a 5-note scale. Now, don't get confused. Sometimes when we come up to C, someone might say, well, wait a second, that's 6 notes. Well, we're doubling the C. So the notes are a C, D, E, cross underneath with your thumb, G, A with the second finger, and then hit the C with your 4th finger or middle finger. So it's 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. And if you're going to keep going, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, and so on for your fingering, all right? Now, this pentatonic scale is super important because it is an extremely versatile scale in that you could use it for everything from jazz to rock, pop, even classical to some degree. All right, so if I'm going to play like... Right, so that's just using that major pentatonic scale. It's a sound that you know, that you've heard before, but if you didn't know the notes, there are the notes. So again, C major pentatonic, C, D, E, and then G, A, and then finally C. It is the 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 5th, and 6th notes from my major scale. Now you'll see how I'm going to relate all of these scales, all 8 of these scales, back to the major scale. That's why it's so important that you really know that major scale. So 1, 2, 3, 5, 6 from the major scale creates the major pentatonic scale. The minor pentatonic scale. So now there's 2 ways of looking at the minor pentatonic scale. The notes, first of all, for C minor pentatonic are C, E flat, F, G, B flat, and then C. All right. Now, actually, I was thinking there's actually 3 ways in which you can look at this. It's kind of like a blues scale with the missing sharp 4. So if you know your blues scale, you're just taking the sharp 4 out. So that's one way of seeing it. The other way of seeing it is that it is 1 flat 3, 4, 5, flat 7 from the major scale. But another way of thinking about it is to go back to the relative major of your minor key. So if it's C minor, the relative major of C minor is E flat. Remember, an easy trick to find the relative major is start with C minor. You should know the notes of your C minor chords, C, E flat, and G. So just go up to the 3rd, which is E flat, and well, there you go. E flat is your relative major. So if you go to the 3rd of your minor chord, right, the flat 3 of your minor chord, that is your relative major. So E flat major, notice what you have here are these notes. E flat major pentatonic is E flat, F, G, B flat, and C. Okay, so E flat, F, G, B flat, C. Now if I start those notes on C, well guess what? There's my C minor pentatonic scale. Now this scale right here is super, super versatile. You hear this in rock, even heavy metal. You hear it in jazz all the time. Great sound. All right, the notes once again in the fingering: C with the thumb, E flat with the second finger, F with the middle finger, cross underneath, G with the thumb, B flat with the second finger, and then C with the middle finger. So C minor pentatonic scale works great over minor chords. You could use it over actually many different types of chords, even suspended chords, dominant chords. So learn this scale, and then we will be talking more about it in the Confident Improviser program, how to utilize these scales, all right? All right, the next scale up is our blues scale. So it's the same thing as the minor pentatonic scale, we're just adding in that sharp 4, all right? So the notes are C, E flat, F, F sharp with the fourth finger, then cross underneath, G with the thumb, B flat with the second finger, and then C with the middle finger. Our blues scale. Pretty common. You've probably already heard about the blues scale. You might even already know the notes. If you don't know the notes, again, it's C, E flat, F, F sharp, G, B flat, C. Right? These work great over minor chords, over dominant chords. Very, very versatile scale. All right, moving on. The altered scale. Now, I have a whole bunch of tutorials on the site for altered scale. So if you just type in the word altered scale into the search box, a lot of stuff is going to come up. All right, so the altered scale, let's go through what the notes are. It's C, D flat, E flat, E natural, G flat, A flat, B flat, and C. This is the same thing as a D flat melodic minor scale starting on C. All right, like I said, I have a bunch of tutorials on the site for it, so just take a look at what's on the site, and it's all explained in detail. I just want to get through these scales for you right now and not take up a bunch of time. All right, so C, D flat, E natural. All right, so right there, I like to break this scale up into two parts: the first 4 notes and the second 4 notes. The first 4 notes have the root and the major third in them, so C and E, and then also flat 9 and sharp 9. Really, really important to see this, okay? Because right here you have the root and the third, right? We already know about our chord shells, right? Root 3 chord shell. So you got the main notes of the chord right there, that root and the third, but then you have flat 9 and sharp 9. So you get a bunch of tension right there. No natural 9 in this scale. And then the top 4 notes are the same 4 notes from your whole tone scale. It's all whole steps coming down from C. So C, B flat, A flat, G flat. All right, so we have C, D flat, E flat, cross underneath with the thumb, E natural, G flat, A flat, B flat, C. The fingering of this scale is the same as C major. So 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And all I'm doing here in the left hand is playing a root 3 7 chord, C, E, B flat, and just running that scale up and down. And I suggest that you do this. With all of these scales, take a look at the sheet music here. You have a chord in the left hand, play the chord, run the scale up and down, and of course take a look at that lesson for some more ideas. Okay, half whole diminished, a real great jazzy scale. Now, what's interesting on the half whole diminished is it's the same first 4 notes as your altered scale, right? So C, D flat, E natural, but then we go F sharp, then G natural, A natural, B flat, C. This is interesting because it is a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 note scale. Most of our scales are 7 notes, right? Except for the pentatonic, which is 5. This is an 8 note scale. Fingering for this: 1, 2, 3, cross underneath, 1, 2, and then 1, 2, 3. So the notes of this scale, it's the same thing as the root of the major scale: flat 9 or flat 2, sharp 9, 3, flat 5, natural 5, natural 6, flat 7, and then root. All right, so again, the notes are C, C sharp, D sharp, E, F sharp, G, A, B flat, C. Now, this is a great scale to play over dominant seventh chords as well. And it's really, really important to take a look at what is the similarities and differences between these scales. This is how you're really going to lock this knowledge in. You're really going to start to understand it a lot better. So the first four notes, right? Like I said, the first four notes of the altered scale in this half-whole diminished scale are exactly the same. You got the root and the third in there, the C and the E, but then you also have flat 9 and sharp 9, D flat and D sharp. The top 4 or 5 notes in this case, right, are different. For the altered scale, you have sharp 11, flat 13, flat 7, and then your root. For the half-whole diminished, you have sharp 11, 5, 13, flat 7, and the root. So if you're not going to alter the 13th, if you're going to keep a natural 13 in your chord, this scale works perfectly for this. Okay, next scale up, the whole half diminished scale. This is the scale that you use over diminished chords, all right? This scale starts, the other thing I forgot to tell you, the half whole diminished scale, right, that we just did, right, over the dominant. Remember, to form that scale, it's really simple. You start on C, then go up a half step, then go up a whole step, then go up a half step, then go up a whole step, then a half, then a whole, then a half, then a you-know-what, whole, right? So it's a very symmetrical pattern there. Same thing for the whole half. You start on C, then you go up a whole step, then a half step, then a whole step, then a half step, then a whole step, half step, whole step. Okay? So the notes are C, D, E flat, cross underneath with the thumb, F, F sharp with the second finger, G sharp with the middle finger, cross underneath with the thumb again, A, B, and then finally to C. This is the scale. This is the scale that you use over these diminished chords. All right, so whole half diminished scale, super important if you want to be able to improvise over those diminished chords. All right, 7, whole tone scale. This one is great over dominant chords, especially dominant chords with a sharp 5 in them, right? And literally all it is it's all just whole steps, starting from C. So it goes C, D, E, F sharp, G sharp, B flat, and C, all right? Or C, D, E, G flat, A flat, B flat, C. Fingering wise, 1, 2, cross underneath, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. This is also a great scale to play different patterns. You could create these different triads on the scale, kind of like some scale chords. Take a look, do a search for scale chords on the site if you need more information on what those are. All right, and then finally, our Locrian natural 9 scale. So our Locrian scale, we haven't talked about the Locrian scale. The Locrian scale is a D flat major scale starting on C. So it would be C, D flat, E flat, F, G flat, A flat, B flat, C. All right? Those are the notes of my Locrian scale. The Locrian natural 9 just takes that flat 9, the D flat, and plays it as a D natural. So now the notes that you have are C, D, E flat, F, G flat, A flat, B flat, C. So this is the root, second, flat 3, 11 or 4, flat 5, flat 6, flat 7 from the major scale. This scale works especially well over minor 7 flat 5 chords. Now typically on the minor 7 flat 5 chord, the ninth can be a little bit tricky. Sometimes flat 9 works better than natural 9. It's really going to depend on the song, and you're going to have to use your ears for that. But guess what? You can just leave the 9 out altogether, right? So if you're unsure, just leave the 9 out. But when you are approaching a minor 7 flat 5 chord, 9 times out of 10, that natural 9 is going to sound better than the flat 9, especially when you're dealing with your chord voicings, okay? The flat 9 is going to rub against the root. All right, so this is your Locrian natural 9 scale. So now the question becomes, okay, how do I practice these scales? How much do I practice them? How do I apply them to my playing and all of that? So what I would say is be patient, go through the Confident Improviser program. We are going to be moving into these scales, right? So I'm kind of preparing you with this podcast episode to kind of know about these scales, because we're going to start to talk about these scales and start to talk about how we bring them into our improvisation. But a great way to start is take a look at that lesson, 8 scales you need to know for improvisation, all right? So take a look at that lesson. I give you a bunch of different suggestions in there. But one of the best things to do is just simply play a chord in the left hand and run the scale in the right hand just to get comfortable with it and to feel natural with it. So let me do my whole tone. Let me do my half whole diminished. Let me do my altered. All right, so I just want to get comfortable playing that scale, so that's the best place to start. As usual, if you have questions and you're a member of JAZZEDGE, be sure to join me every other Thursday for my live Q&A session at 1 p.m. All right, so that's it for me. Thanks, guys, for joining me, and I'll see you guys in the next lesson.